Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of the Deep Six Podcast, coming to you through space and time, not from Philadelphia, not from Orlando, from a combination of both. Who knows where we are right now, actually. I'm your host, Steven Spivak.
I'm a citizen of the internet.
And, of course, that's Mr. Matt Barnes. And we're here doing the best we can to provide you with another episode of the Deep Six Podcast, considering the fact that my flight back to Pennsylvania was canceled and the powers that be in the universe kind of didn't want this to happen this week. But we said fuck it, and here we are. So, of course, like I said, I'm joined by Matt Barnes, as usual, and just a forewarning to those of you listening, I am currently recording in the game room of my apartment complex, so inconsiderate neighbors might walk in and start causing noise. So we're going to try and do this the best we can, and we'll see where it gets us.
Those are the kind of things you deal with when you're on a remote, you know? You just, live on the scene.
But
Team 6.
We also are on some fairly... I would call it decent Wi-Fi right now, so if Matt sounds kind of funny, it's because it is public Wi-Fi, so we're doing the best we can, like Matt said. But this week, kind of want to discuss briefly WrestleMania 33. Everybody else has already discussed it and broke it down. I just kind of wanted to discuss it being there in person. And get the opinions of somebody who was there versus the opinions of somebody who wasn't there and watched at home, like Matt did, just to see how we perceived things differently, how things came across.
That's worth talking about, because I think there was definitely a split, at least when you look on the internet, between people that saw the show live and the fucking marks that watched it at home.
Well, I was listening to Steve Austin's podcast with Wade Keller just the other day.
And that was something I wanted to bring up on the show, that I listened to some of that earlier, the Wade Keller and Austin review, and they tore a lot of stuff up on the show.
Yeah, they really did. It seemed like Wade was very, I don't want to say sour, that's a word I've been using a lot lately, but he was not too happy about the length of the show. And there was a lot of booking things that we mentioned in our preview show for WrestleMania that they kind of made note of as well that probably would have made the show a lot better.
Yeah.
But I guess let's just get right into it. We'll start with the pre-show, which started off with a match that I think was probably one of the better matches throughout the pre-show and the main card, which was the Cruiserweight title match between Neville and Aries. Matt, what did you think of this one?
If I had to put, if you had to make, this imaginary order of what matches were best on the show, I think you put that in your top 3 or 4 matches on the show easily, even if it was on the pre-show. And I think they validated why that match was on the pre-show, as much as people bitched and whined that, this match should be on the regular show. I can't believe they put it on the pre-show. There's a reason why they put that match on the pre-show. If you don't get that, then I don't know if you really get wrestling all that well and what goes into, putting a match listing together. The match itself was fantastic. At first, I didn't love the finish, but as I've gone back and watched it twice now, the finish is really fantastic upon watching it again and again. Just the way that Aries sold it, like he got shot by a sniper somewhere up in the stands, and then Neville kicks the ropes to really, push his heel character even more.
Plus, they worked the eye.
It came off really well.
They worked the eye, which makes a lot of sense for those of you who don't know. Aries was out for, I want to say,
6-7
months. Yeah, he broke his orbital socket. So
Hideo Itami, that sloppy son of a bitch.
So he broke his orbital socket, and they played that up in the match, from what I remember, especially up to the finish.
And they talked about it on commentary, if you haven't gone back to watch it.
Yeah, the pre-show is not something I went back and watched, simply just because I didn't feel like sitting down and watching 9 hours of wrestling.
Sure.
But being there in person, it was a good start to the show. It was barely half full, I would say, by the time they started this match, which usually happens with these pre-show matches. The arena is usually filing in as they start these things.
I'll say this, on TV it did look more full than last year did in Dallas, where, say 80% of the stadium was outside.
Well, wasn't there a problem last year in Dallas with people getting in?
Yeah, I was still outside the stadium before the show, like right as the show was starting, I was getting in. So I missed the beginning of the first match because the doors opened late. They didn't open the doors till like an hour before the actual regular show started.
Yeah, I know. It was pretty crowded getting in there on Sunday to the Citrus Bowl. They were directing people to pretty much use any entrance available because on the tickets there were printed entrances to use. Like if you're in this section, you have to use this gate or whatever. And they just kept telling people wherever there's a gate, go in, because they did.
And that was an issue in Dallas too, that they put entrances on the tickets.
Yeah,
but they weren't changing at any point. When there was 80,000 people lined up at Gate K, 80,000 people were going into Gate K, and that was it.
Yeah, they were very quick about trying to get people in. I know I made a gripe to you earlier in the week that I was trying to find a clear bag to bring in, like my medical things and whatnot. And even when we got to security, they were barely checking anything. So they were just trying to get people in, which was interesting. But we got in there. I think doors opened at 3:30. We got in there about 5, I want to say, because the actual pre-show matches didn't start till about 5:30, 6 o'clock.
5:45ish.
Yeah. So I would say that I was in there for at least a good 20 minutes before anything actually started. But yeah, this match was a great opener. It really got people going. Neville worked the crowd, as Neville does with this heel gimmick that he's been doing. And I think it was a really good open. The match got 15 minutes, which was a lot longer than I think any of us were expecting. But when you put it on the pre-show, you can give it more time than you could if you put it on the main card.
Well, again, and this is why the match was on the pre-show, that you can give it 15 minutes on the pre-show, and it's not going to outshine anything on the main show because it has so much distance from the main show.
Yeah, we were also...
And again, it gives people a reason to watch the pre-show. Mm-hmm. People that wouldn't have watched the pre-show otherwise because they don't care about the Dre, and they don't care about Ambrose versus Corbin, which is a large segment of people don't care about either of those matches. They're going to tune into the pre-show because they want to see Aries versus Neville.
Yeah, and I think that was something that Wade Keller brought up when he was talking to Austin was, even though some of these matches on this card felt like they were put where they didn't belong, no matter how you slice or dice it, it's not going to work in everybody's favor. Simply because, and we'll get to this in a little bit with the talk of the main card, but with AJ and Shane opening, a lot of people felt like AJ deserved a higher spot on the card. And like Wade said, and like I got here sitting and thinking, if you move that match around, then what do you put to open the show? Who do you demote to that spot, and how do you make this all work so it start to finish is high energy?
We'll get there shortly.
But yeah, this match opened the show really well, and was a good way to get those that were in the building already kind of hyped and in anticipating what was to come. After that came the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal, which I have very mixed feelings about. I don't know about you, Matt, but this was. I don't want to say this was a letdown, but I don't want to say it was.
Well, there's certainly
bad.
No way around the fact that they put somebody over in the match that nobody thought they were going to put over. But I certainly challenge the idea that Braun Strowman didn't need to win this. He's more over than the match is. Mm-hmm. And Big Show didn't need to win this. He's already won it before. And Sami Zayn didn't need to win this because he can get heat just by being the underdog character and by being, just that guy who can get the crowd revved up, and he just doesn't need this win. This match is below him, and there was really nobody else in this match that I think that could really benefit from winning it maybe as much as Mojo Rawley could.
Yeah, I don't disagree with Mojo winning. I think I kind of disagree with the Gronkowski interference.
Well, I think that they overscored how over he would be.
Yeah.
Which he wasn't over at all.
It was not very well. Well, I don't want to say it wasn't well received. It was kind of hard to figure out how the crowd in attendance received that Gronkowski interference, simply because, like I've told you, and like you've probably seen being at these large WrestleMania events before, when you're dealing with 75, 80,000 people, and your regularly Monday Night Raw is probably at most 20,000 people. It's almost like having 4 separate arenas in one venue at a time. So while one corner is doing one thing and really into the match, another corner of the arena might not be as involved. So it's kind of hard to perceive an entire building of people that large, specifically when you're in a section that might be going crazy or might be dead. But from where I was sitting, people were having very mixed feelings about the Gronkowski interference, and I know a lot of people were saying, "Oh, it's this Sports Center moment or whatever they were going for." But
sure, that's the idea.
But when WWE is partnered with ESPN at this point, is it really a need to go and grab that quote unquote Sports Center moment?
Everything is kind of a Sports Center moment when you're partnered with the company that needs you because nobody's watching their product already.
Yeah, I guess that is true. But I don't have any issues with Mojo going over. I think.
I just think that when you logically look at it, people shouldn't be bitching as much because maybe we should have seen this coming from the beginning.
Yeah, probably. Overall, though, I feel like the match was sloppy and rushed. But I mean, it's a large battle royal that had, I think there were 33 competitors in it, and when you put that many guys in the ring at one time, it's really hard to make anything look good. So I guess for what they were presented with, it was what was expected, I guess you could say. We'll move on then to the final final match of the pre-show, which was the Intercontinental title match between Dean Ambrose and Baron Corbin. And this match literally did nothing for me.
I don't really have anything to say about it. I expected more, just because I thought that the hype train was behind these guys a little bit more than apparently it was. They gave them almost no time because they were running up against the end of the pre-show, and they put on a real shit-tastic match. I don't really have anything else to say about it.
Yeah, I would.
I like Corbin. You don't like Corbin, and I wanted more out of it because I like the guy that's in the match. I hate Ambrose. I think he's terrible at this point. But it was just a complete waste when you don't even put over the right guy at that point.
Yeah, I didn't see the point in having Ambrose win this match. And it has nothing to do with liking or disliking either guy, but I do feel like the story warranted a Corbin win. But it was what it was. It was a very, I don't want to say straightforward, but I guess that's the best way to put it. It was a very straightforward match. Neither guy really looked too great. And it was only given just under 11 minutes, which I think is roughly makes it like the third or fourth shortest match on the card. And for a championship match, that's kind of rough. But like we said, it was rushed at the end of the pre-show, and it just was what it was. And it's going to be interesting to see where they put the Intercontinental title at coming out of this. If Corbin continues to chase it, or what they do with Corbin. And to see how much longer Ambrose actually holds this title, because it's not been a title run that's been very memorable. So
I think most people, even if you like Ambrose at this point, you can probably agree that he needs a refresh. Just take him back to the drawing board for a while.
Yeah, I think pushing that whole lunatic fringe thing, even though he's going out there and acting more like a comedian than a lunatic, is odd. And I think if they went out and they pushed him and made him a little bit more of the crazy rather than the funny, it would probably work to his benefit. But who knows? I'm not sitting here booking the show. I'm not booking the territory. So
if I see him less, I'll be happy.
So we'll move into the main card then with AJ and Shane. Like I mentioned earlier, a lot of people gave this flack as having AJ open the show, but I think that was the perfect spot for him. Personally, if I were competing at WrestleMania, especially at a show that goes from, I guess you could say, from 5 to midnight, to be put in that main card opener would probably be the best place, because that's when the crowd's the hottest and when you can get the most reaction out of them, because they haven't been sitting out in the sun for 5 hours already, and they're ready to go and they want to see a great opening contest. And I think this match was put in the perfect position. I think that both
definitely is an interesting perspective. Yeah, what were you gonna say?
I think both guys wound up looking really good in this match too, considering what it was.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's an interesting perspective you have. I mean, by far, I'll say that I thought this was the best match on the show. Far exceeded expectations that you could have reasonably had for what it was going to be.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Considering that, I thought the build was better than it had any reason to be. And it was kind of thrown together last minute, but it was better than it had any right to be. And obviously there's a certain element to that, they came out of the gates really hot, and the crowd was really hot for it, and they responded to everything appropriately. But I think that, we saw a different angle of Shane McMahon, where he came out and he didn't do his normal shtick, where he was jumping off shit.
Yeah, I was going to say, Shane looked really good in this match. His strikes looked a lot better than usual. He was actually performing at a level that I think even some of the other talent would be surprised with.
And I think a certain element to that was that he wanted to prove that he could hang as a wrestler, and who better to prove that you can hang as a wrestler with than AJ Styles? You're going to get in there with, and this is a side topic, but how funny is it that, a year ago, JBL wants to shit on AJ Styles as, this guy has to prove himself, Mogul. He's never been here before. He's never done anything. And then, he comes out at WrestleMania and he says, this guy is the best performer in the company, and he might be one of the best I've ever seen. And that's in a year. He's gone from, this guy who's never wrestled in a big promotion before, and now he's the untouchable AJ Styles, because he's so good that, the boss's son has to get in there with AJ Styles and has to wrestle up to him to prove himself. And that's just wildly insane to think about.
Yeah, it is. It's a very interesting perspective in looking at things.
And again, I think it speaks to how much the company trusts AJ Styles too. That you look at the list of people that Vince McMahon has put his son in the ring with, and it's like The Undertaker and, guys of that nature. And he was like, okay, yeah, I trust AJ Styles enough to put my son in the ring with him. He's only been with the company for a year, but I trust AJ Styles.
Yeah.
And I think these are things that get lost on people that, want to shit on where AJ Styles is positioned, or if he didn't beat Roman Reigns fast enough, or if he didn't beat Chris Jericho fast enough. It's just a lot of perspective that people don't think enough about because they're dirty, filthy marks.
Yeah, I think, like I said, I think Shane looked really good in this match. His strikes didn't look like, he was pulling them as hard as he usually does, and he was hitting those martial arts, tosses and things of that nature. I think some of the counters that he had to AJ's typical moveset, like the springboard 450 into the triangle choke, were really interesting. Didn't try and do anything too crazy. We did get the top rope to the announcer table spot. We got the coast-to-coast spot, but nothing like anybody was expecting of him to climb the giant roller coaster type set and jump off of that or anything that was...
No, and that helped, and I think it helped, too, that they were willing to work so stiff that Shane's punches didn't look so terrible.
Mm-hmm.
And overall, it just made it look very realistic for being, a worked wrestling match.
Yeah. But we'll move on to the next match, which was Owens versus Jericho for the United States Championship. There were some moments in this match. I think one of the best moments of the night came with this match and Kevin Owens putting his fingertip on the rope for the rope break.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't think there was a whole lot aside from that was super memorable about this match.
And this is what I tried to say on our preview show, that people should caution themselves from getting too far ahead of themselves, where we want to say, oh, this is going to be the show stealer. We should always guard against putting our expectations too far ahead. And every year we pick out this match that's going to be the match that steals the show. And this is the match that everybody said this year would steal the show. And I just thought, let's not put the cart before the horse. And they didn't deliver what everybody was expecting. I still think it was really good, but it wasn't that, that 5-star classic that everybody wanted it to be. It was just a good, solid match, but it's not something you're going to remember 2 years from now.
No, and like I said, I think it was a solid match. There were some interesting things that happened, like Kevin doing the cannonball run on the apron, which I think was interesting. And like I said, that rope break by the fingertip was probably one of the more memorable moments of the night. But aside from that, it's like you said, it's not going to be something, down the line people are really going to be like, oh, you remember WrestleMania 33 and that classic between Owens and Jericho? That's not going to be a conversation people have. But I think coming off of that AJ and Shane match, it was in the right position on the card. The crowd was still into it, even though it wasn't that great of a match, and it accomplished what it needed to accomplish. But I don't really have much more to say on it. Do you have anything else you want to add to that?
Not really. I don't think it was that remarkable of a match, to be honest with you. It was just there. It was good. But I don't think that it was anything that you're going to write home about. I think that, these guys are going to take that, and I bet you that their match at Payback will be better than this. It'll be something that you actually will talk about.
Or do you think we're actually still going to get the match at Payback after the beatdown that happened to Jericho on Raw the night after Mania?
It is announced, so... that is the only match as of now that is announced for Payback.
All right, well, let's move on then to the Raw Women's Championship match, the Fatal 4-Way between Bayley, Charlotte, Sasha, and Nia Jax, which I don't know how this match was received. I had vested interest in this match simply because I am a major Bayley fan and wanted to see her get the win in Orlando, even if the match wasn't booked properly, which we'll talk about in a second. How did you think this match came across to the viewing audience at home, Matt?
Just seemed very flat. I mean, the build to the match was so haphazardly done and poorly worked. And, aside from a couple big spots, like, the Charlotte corkscrew moonsault and a couple other things here and there, it just didn't seem like many people reacted to very much that was happening in the match. And I think, the booking really is the big issue with that there was nothing to really get excited for, because I think everybody kind of sensed that one of two things was going to happen. Sasha was going to turn, or Bayley was just going to win and retain, and that was going to be it. And that's what we got. It just wasn't very exciting.
Yeah, I mean, even though I was very excited to see Bayley get that, I guess you could call it a moment, it what it could have been with.
But think about the reaction if they had booked it properly.
Yeah.
And it had the Charlotte streak going into there, and then Bayley trying to win for the first time.
Exactly, like I mentioned when we started off the show about how some of the things that we talked about on the preview show for WrestleMania, Wade Keller also brought up. So he mentioned that exactly like we said, that if Bayley were the chase going into this match against Charlotte, against that streak, and she finally, made her dreams come true at WrestleMania, that building would have exploded. But to have her come in as a champ and walk out as the champ,
it was just very flat.
It was extremely flat. But like you said,
I don't know if there's any other way to really talk about that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that they thought that the way they eliminated Nia too would make her look like a monster, and I think that came off flat. That it took 3 people to eliminate her, and that's just not the way it played out. It just made it look like they kind of wasted her appearance in the match, and I don't know, nothing really came off the way they thought it would. I think.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that. I think the match felt kind of rushed as well. The finish felt really quick. They were only given about 12 minutes, so for a Fatal 4-Way, that's an elimination Fatal 4-Way, to go only 12 minutes is kind of quick. I don't really have any other thoughts on that match other than, like you said, it felt flat and it felt rushed.
Yeah, I mean, that's real all I got. It felt very flat and rushed, and I think that this division is badly in need of a shakeup on both sides.
Well, Mr. McMahon...
We need to see some women's competitors go both ways.
Yeah, well, Mr. McMahon did say that it's time to shake things up a bit, which we will discuss towards the end of this. But let's talk about the Raw Tag Team ladder match for the Raw Tag Team titles, which saw the Club, Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson, go in to defend against Sheamus and Cesaro and Enzo and Cass. And also saw the return of the former TNA World Tag Team Champions and probably the most over tag team in the business right now, the Hardy Boys. And possibly...
Currently the most over tag team in the business.
Yeah.
Currently.
And they definitely probably got the biggest pop of the night.
Yeah, I mean, if you were going to measure pops, I mean, Hardy Boys probably number 1. I'd put Brock and Goldberg at number 2. I'd put AJ and Shane at 3 and Miz at 4.
Yeah,
that's how it played on TV.
Yeah, I would think the Hardys definitely got the biggest pop of the night simply because when they came out, when their music hit, you could feel the ground shaking. Like, the building was literally shaking. And it was one of those things that it was kept so secret until it happened, and it was legitimately a surprise for a lot of people that, it just goes to show that these returns should be kept under wraps rather than, doing vignettes and saying, oh, in 3 weeks this person's coming and this, that, and the other thing. The match itself felt a little rushed, but for what it was a very decent match. Got some decent ladder spots. Nothing too crazy. Even Jeff's swanton from the ladder on top of, I believe it was Sheamus and Cesaro.
Yes.
That even, wasn't too extreme. Especially considering some of the things they've done in the WrestleMania ladder matches in years past.
Well, I just don't think that Jeff could really do much with that match, considering they had a ladder match with the Young Bucks the night before. They were just really beat up from what I understood.
Yeah, and I know that Jeff was saying how earlier Sunday he was really sore and beat up, and
yeah, they were just not in good shape that day.
Even while Mania was happening, at the start of Mania, he was back at the hotel resting, from what I understand. But I think I think everyone got their stuff in. The match looked decent. Again, not anything to write home about except for the fact that the Hardys came back and won the titles.
Yeah, I mean, I think the most interesting stuff about this match is where you go from here with a lot of it. Because not giving Enzo and Cass the win really raises questions about where they are as an act. Because if you didn't pull the trigger now, I don't think you ever really can at this point. They're just not they're not as tremendously over as they were. I think the act is starting to wear a little thin in terms of, recognizing that Enzo is tremendously poor as a worker.
Yeah, I think...
It has not gotten better, and Cass has gotten a lot better, and everybody recognizes that.
I think with
that's, I think, starting to wear thin on some of the crowd.
Well, yeah. I think with the Hardy Boys thing, too, I feel like Enzo and Cass were slated to win this until they completed that deal to get the Hardys back. Only because booking-wise, if they really, like you said, really want to keep Enzo and Cass a thing, it only made sense to put the titles on them. But it is very interesting to see where they go with Enzo and Cass from here.
I think where you go with the Hardy Boys is a legitimate question mark. Because, I mean, we've seen from the Dudley Boys a year ago that the Nostalgia Act thing gets stale very, very quickly. And I think that even giving them the titles, it's going to get stale very quickly. People are going to have that, oh, I remember when they did that. And that's going to wear off in about 2 weeks. And then people are going to be like, okay, what's next?
I think it'll be interesting to see.
It's going to be over unless they switch them broken very fast. It's going to be over.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it'll be interesting to see how much they push that broken gimmick, considering that they are in a legal battle with TNA at the moment. Which WWE...
I mean, we all know that WWE's machine is so big that if they want that over, it's going to be over.
Yeah. But yeah, the Hardys coming back, probably one of the biggest moments of the night. We'll move on to the next match. John Cena and Nikki Bella versus The Miz and Maurice. This match left me a little underwhelmed, but it completed its task of putting John Cena over to the point where he could propose to Nikki. And Miz looked strong in the beginning of it, but just the way that it turned around and ended so quickly was, I don't think, the best booking decision, but it is what it is.
They didn't give this nearly enough time that it should have gotten. I think they should have given Maurice some spots in the match, because if they have any intention of using her as a wrestler later, she could have used this for months and months and months to come. It's like, hey, did you see the way I grabbed her extensions out during that match? I gripped a bitch up. She could have relied on that for months, and they didn't do anything with that. I mean, this will give Miz talking points forever, and but the match just didn't get enough time, especially for the match that was most well built going into WrestleMania. Mm-hmm. They just didn't give it enough time, and the crowd was really hot for it, so it's kind of a shame. But we know why this match didn't get enough time, and we're going to get to that shortly.
Yeah. Like I said, it started off really nice seeing Miz get the upper hand, but as soon as it turned around, you got the Nikki and John spots where they're doing, both doing the 5-knuckle shuffle, and they're both doing their finishers at the same time, and it was just a typical outcome. It got flat really quick, and like you said, this match just didn't get nearly enough time, in my opinion. And the whole drawn-out proposal thing at the end really felt awkward and forced and, dare I say, fake.
I think they expected people to turn on that, and for the live crowd to be like, "Oh, that's so sweet," and it just came off so fake that people were like, "The fuck is this shit?" Are they filming the TV show right now?
I don't know if you saw, but Linda McMahon was being questioned in Congress.
I did. I didn't read the article, but I saw the headline.
Yeah, one of the people in Congress asked her why it took John so long to propose, and I'm just sitting here really? But yeah, that whole thing felt quick and then really forced with that proposal and having Al Roker there and all that. It just felt like, are we doing this for wrestling, or are we doing this for our reality show season finale, that's going to come in 2 months' time. But again, it's not one of the matches that I think anybody will truly remember aside from the whole fake proposal at the end. Of course, next was Seth Rollins and Triple H in a non-sanctioned match, which, if I remember correctly, was the longest match of the night.
Got like 25 minutes.
Yeah, it was about 25 and a half minutes that it got.
And if you're wondering why everything else got such a short amount of time, there you are. So that the fucking old man on the tricycle can get his giant lame entrance, and the fucking Olympic torch can get brought out.
I understand that a lot of people are critical about this match. I'm not as critical as them, but it probably has to do with the section I was in. We were all kind of joking with this match and having fun with it, so I think it made me perceive the match as being better than what it was.
This match was obviously, Triple H matches. He tries to make it all about the spectacle. The entrances were lame. Like his entrance especially, we just kept making jokes about it being like a lame episode of Sons of Anarchy. He's like got his bitch on the back of his motorcycle, and he's like, come on, we got to go take out Brown and Yellow. We're taking over new turf. It was just really lame. And Seth Rollins' entrance was lame.
Seth Rollins came out with fire in a non-sanctioned match and left it at the top of the stage.
And then didn't use it as a weapon.
Like, the logic is lost.
And then the booking of the match was just so bad. Like, I just imagine them backstage just like, okay, and then you're going to hit a move, and then you're going to sell your knee. And then I'm going to hit a move, and then you're going to sell your knee.
Yeah, there was a lot.
And then we're going to do it again.
There was a lot of selling of the knee.
It was so bad.
And it even carried over into Monday Night Raw, which was also really bad. He's just selling that knee like it's not even there anymore. And it's coming off really awkward, and I think it's finally making people realize how boring Seth Rollins kind of is, and how he really doesn't have a character, that he needs to rely on selling his knee injury to get himself over.
That's why he's a babyface, because he's hurt. He's not a babyface because he cut a promo or because like there's anything about him that makes people want to cheer him. It's because, oh, I'm hurt and they're picking on me.
Yeah.
You fucking suck. And you ended Sting's career. You're the fucking worst.
But
do you know anybody else who punches John Cena in the face and breaks his nose, then has his fucking cookie dough dick all over the internet? He dated a Nazi. He ended Sting's career. And the night they want to give Finn Balor the world title, he injures him. And he still has a job. And he can't get over.
Yeah, it's
who has that many knocks against him and still has a job?
A guy that Triple H cares about?
Being good only takes you so far. At some point, you have to do something with it. How many guys have we seen be good and get nowhere, like Dolph Ziggler?
Yep.
Because they don't have a personality.
Yep.
Dolph Ziggler thinks he has a personality. He doesn't.
But yeah, this match, I can't really speak to it aside from the fact that we had a lot of fun with it in the section I was sitting.
I had more fun making fun of the match than I did watching it.
Yeah, I think that was part of it for us. We were joking about, how Stephanie was dead after she fell through that table and things like that. We weren't really too involved in the actual match, so I think it was more, like I said, or like you said, making fun of it, that it was...
And then Triple H had to go backstage and know that he got outshined by the boss's real son. Not his fake son. His real son outshined him that night. and he got over Cookie Dough Dick, and it didn't mean anything.
But yeah, I felt like for that match, and I think Steve Austin himself said this in his criticism of the match, that it started off well, went a little long through the middle, and finished fairly well. I think if they would have cut 10 minutes out of the middle of this match, it wouldn't have been as bad. But
yeah, I think Keller said that if they took out the middle 10 minutes, it would have been fast-paced, and it would have been exciting, and it just would have been a different match. But I don't think it would have been any better, but at least would have been over faster.
Yeah. After that, we saw probably the worst match of the night with Randy Orton and Bray Wyatt fighting for the WWE Championship.
Yeah, I think it was a pretty dead heat between these two.
They tried to get that weird, creepy gimmick thing going with the projections over the ring, and
yeah, and that only works if your opponent sells it.
Yeah.
If your opponent's like, I'm over this stupid shit, I'm not doing it anymore, and doesn't sell it, then it's not going to work. And that's kind of what happened.
Yeah, it felt like the first time they did it, it was like a real shock thing. Like, oh, okay, that was cool. And then they did it again.
Yeah, and then Orton
was
looked
like,
at it and then was like, nope. And that was it.
Yeah, and then they did it again, and it was like, okay, what are they trying to do here? And then they did it a third time, and everyone was just like, really? We're doing this again? But
they did all that, then he didn't win.
And then he lost, exactly. And it just made no sense to do that weird gimmick shit if you're just going to have him lose. And it just, the match as a whole just felt extremely flat. There was nothing that happened.
Just like Keller and Austin said, you're looking at two guys who are like B- players now.
Yeah.
You know, Orton will give you a good match, but he's not going to take any risks because he doesn't want to get hurt anymore. And, you know, he's good for what he is, but he is what he is at this point. And Wyatt will never have an A-level match. He just, you know, you're always going to want him to, and he's just never going to give it to you. And that's kind of what you have out of those two guys, which is why this match shouldn't have been the main event, and it wasn't the main event. And I thought it would be better, but it wasn't.
Yep, I guess that's the best way to put it. I don't really have any other thoughts on that match other than I felt like if you were going to give Randy the win, he could have done it in a better fashion, considering he's kind of an overperformer at WrestleMania.
He totally is. And I think that with a better opponent, you probably get a better effort out of him. He's not taking risks for something that's going to be flat, though.
Yeah, agreed. Anyway, we'll move on to Brock Lesnar versus Goldberg. Shortest match of the night at 4 minutes and 45 seconds, which gives Goldberg roughly 10 minutes ring time in his entire return run. But this match was very high energy all the way through, and it kept the crowd entertained. So I'm not going to sit here and say it was a bad match, especially for what it was. I think it what's the word I'm trying to say? It exceeded expectation.
It was definitely my second favorite match on the show. I mean, you've already seen my thoughts on this because you saw that I posted them somewhere.
Yeah.
These two guys put on a wrestling clinic, because if you look at what wrestling is, it's a business, and these two guys showed you why wrestling is a business. They went out there and they did 4 fucking moves, and they entertained the shit out of people, and they got out there without getting hurt. And that's really what wrestling should be. They entertained as many people as possible without doing anything and got hurt. And nobody got hurt. I mean, that's what it should be. You listen to the crowd, and they wanted to hate it from the beginning. And within 30 seconds, they were losing their shit over it. And that's what makes wrestling fun.
Yeah, it was like I said, high energy from start to finish, and a lot of people were just like, oh, here comes the 30-second match. And then after it went 30 seconds, people are like, oh, they're going to give this time? Oh, they're going to, actually work a little bit? Oh, okay, we're into this. It was good. It was exciting, and it kept people's attention. Easily the best match that the two of them had. Their match at WrestleMania 20, which I guess is the only other real match they had, was absolute garbage.
Yeah, that was a real match. I mean, this wasn't really a real match. This was just a spectacle, what they had at, 33. But, that's what wrestling is supposed to be. You don't go out there and do 20 minutes of flip-floppy shit. You're doing too much. You don't have to do that much. Just do simple psychological stuff, and people will lose their shit. And that everybody goes home happy. That's what it should be about. And I think they showed that to you in this match, that it can be simple and people can be very happy and they can get over very, very, very well.
That match, of course, was followed by the six-pack challenge for the WWE SmackDown Women's Championship with Naomi, Alexa Bliss, Carmella, Mickie James, Natalya, and Becky Lynch. I don't even know what to say about this match other than Naomi should have returned at WrestleMania to win, especially since they gave her the win. Returning in the week before made this just completely an irrelevant match, in my opinion.
Well, I mean, if Naomi has to win, which apparently she had to win for some reason, if she has to win, then yes, have her return at WrestleMania. But if you're dealing with a six-pack challenge where people only care about 3 people in the match, then you're already way behind the 8 ball. So, I mean, especially if you're going to have somebody win who's not one of those 3 people that the crowd cares about. Might have gotten a pop, but people don't give a shit.
Yeah. It was putting that match on the main card, even though they did it because apparently of the outcry from the fans.
Fan outcry for Becky Lynch and Alexa and Mickie James to be on the show is not the same as fan outcry for all 6 of them to be on the show. It's completely different.
Agreed. Only got 5.5 minutes. Felt extremely rushed.
And that was too long.
Yeah. It felt really rushed, though, for having 6 women in there and Naomi just come out of nowhere with this subpar submission hold. And there was no story. It was just, how fast can we get this match over with to get to Roman Reigns and The Undertaker?
Well, it's the Divas Revolution, man. We need to show how far the women's wrestling has come. And we're right back to where we were 10 years ago, where we just send them out there to have 5 minutes and then be fucking gone, to be forgotten.
Yep.
And, both the women's storylines going into WrestleMania were terrible. And that's why we got what we got. They didn't put enough thought into it, and the booking was botched up. And that's what you get. Yeah,
it was...
This should have been a triple threat. It should have been Alexa and Mickie and what's-her-face, Becky. And that should have been it. That was enough.
Yep, I don't disagree with you. Then we'll get into Roman and The Undertaker. The match went 23 minutes. I think the match ended just before midnight. Felt like the match went a little longer than it needed to, but I think the match told the story that it needed to. The fact that Undertaker is broken and beaten down, and Roman Reigns needed to come in there and annihilate him, which he pretty much did. Undertaker got some of his stuff in. He got that moment with the send-off, but I feel like this match just went too long. And that was definitely the consensus of everyone around me. I know there were chants starting in my section of, it's past my bedtime. People pretty much just saying, we want to leave.
Well, I mean, nobody was keeping you there.
No.
They could have left.
No. But who was going to walk out before the end of the show? What are your opinions on this match?
Well, if you listen to people, they always talk about, I'm going to walk out if this happens. So fucking walk out. Nobody gives a shit. Fucking leave if you want to leave. Well, I mean, number one, I mean, if you walk out of watching this match and you don't respect Roman Reigns more than you did before that match, then you fucking know nothing about wrestling. And that's a hardline stance, but it's 100% true.
Agreed.
Because oftentimes in this match, he literally carried a fucking dead body through the match.
He did.
And
he definitely did.
How do you not respect the guy? Because we, much like Brock Lesnar before WrestleMania 30, we all criticized the guy and said, "Oh, he can't wrestle. He can't do this. He can't do that." And Roman Reigns was like, "Oh yeah, hold my beer," and he just out wrestled, and did what he had to do to get through this match. And he got put in a bad position with a guy who should not be wrestling anymore. He should have stopped wrestling several years ago because he just can't physically do it anymore. And that's been, a long time coming that he can't physically do it anymore. The last good match he had was against CM Punk at WrestleMania 29, and he hasn't been able to go since then.
And even then, Punk carried him through that.
You're 100% right. So, this is a guy that had no business being in there, and Roman Reigns was like, all right, I got you. I'll get you through this. And he's going to take heat for a lot of the botches that were in that match. But he just kept trotting through it. So if you still want to criticize Roman Reigns after that, sorry, this probably isn't for you. You just don't know what you're watching.
And then when he came out the night after and just said, it's my yard now,
It's perfect.
And then he made the gesture, you're all in the palm of my hand.
You need to come back out. Yeah.
It's great to see that they're hopefully pushing him in the direction of either a heel or as just this badass, which he needs to be.
I like the way that they did it, where it doesn't have to be this thing where they're clearly telling you this is heel Roman Reigns. It's just, this is a guy who's doing whatever the hell he wants to do. And you're all just there, and you can decide to like him for it, or you can decide to hate him for it. And most of you are going to hate him for it, but you're all just living in his world now, and he's going to tell you about it all the time. And I like that.
Yep, I agree. Any other points you want to make about this match? Anything else you want to say?
Not really. I'm glad it's over. The Undertaker stuff. It's time for it to be over. The guy can't go anymore.
Yeah.
And having JR there for that, to really sell that point on commentary that, the heart's willing, but the body isn't willing to go anymore, it's the perfect person to have there for that. I love that they have JR at their disposal now, that they can call him in like a closer out of the bullpen and be like, JR, we need you for this John Cena versus AJ Styles match. All right, call in the righty. Call in Boomer Sooner from the bullpen. And I like the idea that they're going to be able to use JR like that.
Yeah.
It just sold this match perfectly. And, it's good that it's over. The significance of the business can't be undersold, but I'm not a fan, and it's time for it to be over.
Yeah, I mean, we all agree, like you said already, 29 was the last decent match that The Undertaker had at WrestleMania. Personally...
It's the last decent match he had, period.
Yeah, personally, I think they should have ended it with 30. The end of the streak, he should have just disappeared. But I think even though this match wasn't great on his half, the send-off they gave him was relatively emotional. Him leaving his gear in the middle of the ring, descending into the stage.
I mean, if you cried at The Undertaker leaving,
I didn't cry.
You aren't in my crew anymore.
I didn't cry.
That's just a general statement, not just to you, but if you cried at The Undertaker, you're out of my crew.
But to know that that was the end, it's going to be interesting.
Made me so happy.
It's going to be interesting to see WrestleMania without The Undertaker, don't you think?
Yeah, just an extra good match in that 20 minutes.
Or we could just cut out that whole...
They can give AJ Styles 20 minutes next year instead of just 15.
Or we could just cut out that whole amount of time that would be taken up by an Undertaker match. And
how great would it have been if that AJ Styles Shane McMahon match got 20 minutes? Like another 5 minutes would have helped that. Like I could have sat through another 5 minutes of that match.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree. But overall, what would you rate the show out of? We'll go 10.
I don't know what people were watching that they didn't like this show, but I give that like a solid 7.5 or an 8. That was one of the better WrestleManias, I think.
Yeah, I'd probably go with about a 7 myself. Definitely.
It far exceeded expectations.
Yeah, definitely exceeded the expectations. Especially like we said with the AJ Shane match, the return of the Hardys. They
gave you enough moments where you're going to remember this show.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to be like, okay, there was some solid stuff there. I mean, you're going to remember The Undertaker being done. Whether you're a fan or not a fan, you'll always remember that. You'll always remember the Hardy Boys coming back. You'll always remember AJ versus Shane. And, I think that's a solid start to a memorable WrestleMania. If you have 3 or 4 things you can remember, then that's a good show, I think.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think, like we already said, it definitely exceeded expectations. There weren't moments that were so boring that I was like, okay, I'm done. I'm not watching wrestling anymore, which I feel like...
That Rollins vs. Triple H match got real close, though.
I feel like there were definitely moments where that happened the last 2 or 3 years where I'm like, why am I still watching this shit?
Yeah, for sure.
I don't think there was anything like that.
It didn't eclipse WrestleMania 30. I still think that's one of the better shows they've ever put on, WrestleMania 30.
Oh, yeah.
Didn't eclipse that, but it's been the best since then. 31 was pretty bad. 32 was pretty bad. And hopefully this sets off a new stretch of really good shows. I'm hoping 34 is another good one.
Well, we will see. Of course, WrestleMania 34 will be in New Orleans. It's going to be at the Superdome again. And
the Silver Dome, brother.
And yeah, that happens, what, April 1st?
April 8th.
8th?
It's a week later next year.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Must be something with that weekend, would be my guess.
Probably.
I'm pretty sure I saw the advertisement. I'm pretty sure it said April 8th.
Well, whatever it is, it's April of next year in Louisiana. Who knows? Maybe we'll be there. You planning on being there?
I think there's a good shot. No, the 8th is a Monday, so I was wrong about the 8th, I think. No, wait, that's May. Hold on.
Jesus Christ, Matt.
Yeah, I'm a fool. Hold on. So April 8th is a Sunday. So it's either the 1st or the 8th. One of us is right.
I would assume it's the 1st. They always try to go for that first Sunday of the month.
My early plan is to go. I mean, I had so much fun at WrestleMania 30 in New Orleans. And I have so many stories I still tell about being there for that week. It was one of my most fun wrestling experiences ever. And I think you'd be sadly remiss not to experience WrestleMania in New Orleans. It's like being there for Mardi Gras, I'd say.
Fair point. On that note, I guess we're going to get out of here. Matt, where can they find you on social media?
I'm on Twitter at @TheMattBarnes, on Instagram at @TheMatthewBarnes.
And of course, the Deep Sports Podcast, where can they find that?
At Deep Sports Pod on the Twitter and on the Instagram too, I believe, Steve.
And of course, hopefully, a new episode will be here next week.
That's all dependent on you, isn't it?
We'll see. If my next flight doesn't get canceled, I might. If my flight does get canceled, I'll probably just stay here. I don't have any plans to return.
I do have another friend who's struggling to get back from New Orleans on Frontier. They had their flight canceled yesterday, and now they've been delayed until they still haven't left yet.
Seriously?
Yes.
I know there's been a lot
Also
of
Frontier.
a lot of flight cancellations. I think Delta canceled like 3,000 the other day. It's been a crazy travel experience for
I just thought it was
involved.
funny because it was also Frontier.
But you can find me on social media, Instagram, Twitter, Steven_Spivak. And, of course, you can subscribe. You can subscribe. I don't know what subscribe means, but you can subscribe for free to this podcast you're listening to right now, the Deep Six Podcast, on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and Podbean for free. Of course, you just got to go search for the Deep Six Podcast, find us, click subscribe. You'll get it as soon as it's published. Find us online, deep6podcast.com, at Deep Six Podcast on all social media. And we'll see you next week for the Deep Sports Podcast.
Probably. Maybe. Hopefully.
Until then.